Everything's in the name. Guatemala. Guatemala, it comes from the word Cuautamalan. Cuautamalan, which is a Nahuatl word. So the Nahuatl word is the word of the conquering people from the north, the Nahua speakers, and these were the Aztecs. They came here and they called Guatemala Cuautamalan. Why did they call it Cuautamalan? Because it was just a translation for the word of Quiche. Quiche means many trees. So Cuautamalan is a place of many trees, and so Guatemala is a place of forests. Because it's volcanic, it's all very split apart, you know. If you live on Lake Atitlan, it's like living on little islands. You know, those villages, they're connected by roads, but they never were connected by roads. You just got in a canoe and you canoed from village to village. So it's like living on islands out there. But that's just part of it, you know, that's just Lake Atitlan. The rest of the country is the same way. It's a country that has a lot of diversity because people don't move from town to town. Each place has their particular arts and crafts, and then those things are brought by merchants to other places. So when people talk about corn, they talk about the milpa. And then they talk about abish, avesh. Those are the names for the milpa. So, and the Mayas see themselves as Ishimwinak. But they see themselves as Ishimwinak. They see themselves as corn people. And you live in a milpa, you live in a family of the milpa, and you live in individuals, but you could never make it unless you were living together.
Es un sagrado alimento que todo maya, indígena, guatemalteco, sobrevivimos solo del maíz. No consumimos más como vegetales, no. Solo maíz, solo maíz. Ajá. Por eso, en el área de Guatemala, en muchas partes, solo se encuentra la siembra de milpa.
And Ishim means corn, but since it's a Mayan language, it has to go down to the very essential. What is corn? The ish is the mother, right? It means from, ish, from the, and im is the breast. So corn is that which comes from the breast. In other words, your mother's milk. It's a whole thing like that you drink. You're actually drinking milk. You're actually drinking corn from your mother's breast. So you never get out of corn. You're born into the world drinking corn. It sustains you and you sustain it. It nourishes you and you nourish it. And so this whole thing about perfect reciprocity between the corn and the human beings.
Me siento orgulloso ser gente del maíz, del campo. Sí, esa es la vida de nosotros, es el maíz. Sí. Tenemos mucha pena y mucha lástima y mucho sentimiento por una milpa. No podemos venir y agarrar un machete, cortar la milpa y matarlo, no. Es un gran pecado, porque la milpa es sagrado. Ajá, es sagrado.
Corn doesn't even need rain to germinate. That corn's not, it's fine with dry earth. It has a lot of wetness in it and it has all the humidity through the night. So from 6 o'clock when the sun drops, the humidity starts to fall. And the corn plant catches all the humidity. It has all these little hairs on it, and it catches all the humidity, and then it starts to have water droplets, and it drops down through here, and then it's like this is like a little waterfall. Yeah, look at how great those hairs are. They're going to collect water, they're going to drip it down, and then it's just going to drop down. It's going to feed the corn plant perfectly. So corn, that's how corn survives drought. It's a super smart plant.
Solo vivimos todos los días del maíz. Si desayunamos, pensamos en la tortilla, el desayuno. Y el almuerzo, la tortilla. Y en la cena, la tortilla. Entonces somos del maíz. Nosotros no podemos vivir por una semana comiendo una hamburguesa, solo comiendo pan, o solo tomando agua pura, o solo tomando así, o sea, comiendo así frutas como manzana, melón, papaya. No nos puede abastecer el estómago, porque trabajamos y nos da mucha hambre. Entonces, solo del maíz. Si comemos la tortilla, estamos llenos. Sí, entonces por eso pensamos que la gente maya es gente del maíz. Sí, ajá. Desde los 7 años ya ellos empiezan a trabajar. De 7 años un niño ya preparamos su pequeño asadón y ellos van con nosotros a trabajar. Les enseñamos el trabajo. Aunque ya ahora tenemos un pequeño asadón aquí. Un pequeño niño de 7 años de este tamaño ya puede trabajar. Sí, en Guatemala. Sí, así es. El niño con este empieza a trabajar poco a poco. Ahí está. Es un pequeño asadón. Pero este es para niño. Sí, es para niño. Ajá.
The new year begins, and then you start to tend the corn, and you go all the way through the year from March, say 21st, all the way to December 21st, and that's that 9-month cycle, 9 months, 260 days of when the corn comes to fruition. And that's the cyclical world of the Ishimwinak, and it's just really, really well worked out. It's, it's thousands and thousands of years in its formulation. So, the people who said, where do the Mayas go? It's like they're right here. They're the same Mayas. Don't think that they're even close to being anything but the very, 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 very much the same Mayas, because their system, we know, that comes from what we see in hieroglyphic writing is laid down here this year as we speak, and the things that are going on today. So and it's all founded on the idea of the corn.
Nos gusta tener la montaña, los árboles, porque también vivimos de los árboles. Digamos, esta parte tenemos la leña. Esta leña es para cocer el elote, la mazorca. Ahí está la leña, listo. Y esa leña también usamos en la chimenea que tenemos acá. Ahí hacemos el fuego para cocer estos. Sí. Entonces es interesante la montaña para nosotros también. Sí. Y no solo de leña, sino que sacamos madera para construir una casa, un establo, de así. Sí.
At the same time, as the Mayas transformed and they became much more aggressively kind of capitalist, and they really fell into this thing of like they're going to be moving on and being educated and stuff like that, then they lost a lot of the things that I had liked. It's a real irony. People joke, in the streets, they always call me the old man, like the old guy, old ways guy, the ancestor, kind of joking because like I like the old stuff more, and then and for them it's like kind of old style, like, no man, we're moving on, like we got the internet, They can't let me inside their world. Even psychologically thinking, they have to go, oh no, he's got to stay in this category. And that's really an interesting thing. Like with Chepe, the people that I live with most, they just really don't want to speak Cachiquel with me. I think the other thing is, I know because they said it one time, said, well, we can't learn English, so we don't want you to learn Cachiquel. I said, well, that's ridiculous. Learn English. That's not how to like be successful in life. Since you can't do it, I'm not, you can't, since we can't do it, you can't do it. You can learn English, You have this real big deal of these cycles of time. And that time is cyclical. It's not lineal. You don't start with an origin in Genesis and end in an apocalypse with the 4 horsemen, this whole crazy Armageddon thing that is in the minds of Western world. The Western world is completely enveloped in this idea that we got to end in fire and brimstone. But in the Mayan world, you have these cycles of time, cycles of time. The age begins, the age ends. The ages were suns, so the sun begins, the sun ends. And this is what people hunger for so much in the Mayan world. They have to have this. They have these big ceremonies, like you met these people up on top of the mountains, where they want to mark time. They're just so content with the idea that I'm just going to repeat what my grandfather did and my grandmother, and that's okay. Obviously, this is changing at the time, but I think that where people get to have a little of the ease of being in the world, is that they can fall back on the idea that, we don't really have to change. We are here, we've always been here, and we always will be here. And you see, in the Western world, that's always an issue. It's like, we weren't here, we got here, we came from a different place, and now we might go to another place, and we might be another person because we're in another place. We have no idea like who we're going to be or what we're going to become. Maya doesn't have that. Maya is like, here I am, who I am, and where I am.
El procedimiento de la milpa es, en el principio, hacemos el trabajo, el calzado, la limpieza. Después de la limpieza, sembramos el maíz con un pequeño asadón. Después de hacer la siembra, viene otro trabajo, se llama raspado. Es una limpieza. Primero, y después se echa su fertilizante. Después del fertilizante viene su calzado como ahora. Ese es calzado. Ese calzado pues sirve para que el viento no lo bote la milpa. Y la lluvia viene fuerte, resiste también, está protegido. Y ya en tiempo de noviembre a diciembre ya se seca toda la milpa y ya viene una cosecha de mazorca. Y con esta herramienta nosotros vamos a cosechar la mazorca. Es un elote. Este es un elote, pero con el tiempo, este ya no es elote, ya es una mazorca. Entonces nosotros agarramos este tapiscador, metemos acá y jalamos, así. Y jalamos así, después abrimos, así. Y abrimos así, sacar la mazorca. Ahí sacamos la mazorca, mire. Ahí está la mazorca. Entonces, esto es el trabajo de esta. Este es un tapiscador. Sí, esto nos sirve para la cosecha. Entonces, este es muy especial para nosotros. Cada año usamos, lo guardamos y es muy interesante.
If you're an millennial person, you're in a race. You're going to judge yourself time. If I'm 63-year-old, where am I? If I'm 22, where am I? If I'm 25, where should I be? If I'm 35, where should I be? Do I have children? Do I don't have children? Do I have a house? Do I not have a house? You're judging yourself on this timeline. Oh my God, that's horrendous. That's a horrible way to go through life. Because a person could be whatever they want. So the Mayas don't have that. They just go back and back and back. They don't care how old you are or whatever you are. Oh, the year's over. Let's start again. Yeah, we're just moving along and we're going round and round in circles, round and round in circles. And there's not a lot of development. There's not a lot of transformation, but that's what people want. Our culture, we want all these vast transformations, like life's going to be so transformed. This whole push for like self-development. Like who needs the stress of self-development? I mean, it's great and everything, but it's like, take it easy, take it easy. Go let yourself be transformed, but let it be in a cyclical way.
Mire el trabajo que ellos han hecho. Buen trabajo. Sí.
In order for the world to be able to be what it is, we have to often change on the outside to maintain, and that's what the Mayas have done. Why are the Mayas here? Because they've maintained their language, they've maintained their basic way of life, they've maintained this idea of saying thank you before a meal, waking up in the morning and saying thank you. This is a big deal. English becomes this language where you're trying to describe the world, so it's very descriptive, it's very analytical, you can talk about things really well. Whereas in my language, you can't talk about the world that well with it, but it's good to be able to talk to divinity and to do this kind of praying that I'm, like was it Sakol Bitol Alom Kahalom Nimalaqih Nimalaqsak Nimhuyub Nimtaka Ayamun Ayrujlev Nim Shit Nimkam Mantiosh Wakatat Mantiosh Wakanan Kaya Kananu Kasrima Kaya Kananu No be kaya kana kha nu sa samach nu chak matios chwa qatat matios chwa kanan Maltios, 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 Shuya Ankilar Shinen, Maltios, Shuya Hakana, Nukaslima, Shuyakana Nusama, Shuyakana Hanuvu, Shuyakana Ankilal Nutsich, Nubich, Nkilal, Maltios, Maltios, Tat, Maltios, Nan. So I hear this and I'm like, this is what I want to learn to do in my lifetime. This is all I want to learn to do.
Chawe hong kame, hong día viernes. Kame sablahan ki kotwan, kinukush, redios suyan kaslemal, inkoyuke. Riesh, pues, riesh kaunak, chehon país chek, pero shishokakike, el cheyo le han apoyar.
It's interesting, Mayas, they've always kind of been a bilingual people. They're bilingual today. They're trilingual people. They spoke Nahuatl. They spoke a Mayan language, Quiche, Cachiquel, Mam, Pocomam, whatever it was.
Hablo cuatro idiomas. Español, Cachiquel, Quiche, un poco Sutujil también. ¿Sí?
If we just look behind us, it's like that village over here speaks a certain kind of Sutujil that's different from the Sutujil from over here, and it's very different from the Sutujil over there. Well, they're right next to each other, but the languages are very specific. And then over here is Cachiquel, and over here is Quiche, and over here behind us is another kind of Quiche that's not spoken like this kind of Quiche. Very diverse people.
Estoy a mitad de Quiche y Cachiquel. Ajá, Quiche y Cachiquel, sí. Ajá, sí, los dos. Sí, porque todos los días hablamos siempre en dos dialectos. Sí, Quiche y Cachiquel. Digamos, esta parte de acá es puro Quiche. Y la parte de allá enfrente es puro Cachiquel. En español, buenos días. En Cachiquel, sacar. En Quiche, sacarek. En Sutujil, sacarika. Así, 4 idiomas.
You have these variables that are, is it going to rain? Is it going to be too windy? Is there going to be a hurricane? Will the wind blow it down the corn? You have to control all those natural forces, and you do that because all those natural forces are deities. They're what's called the Mayan gods, and they're all controllable through sacrifice. So in order for the corn to give you sustenance, and for you to give sustenance, you have to give the deities sustenance. You got to give sacrifice so that you get the whole thing ordered. It's like this kind of triple thing, right? And that's really what the whole Mayan world is, right there. That's what it is. That's just really what it was taking care of the corn, and the corn takes care of you, and you do all your ritual to make sure that it's nice and sunny. It's been raining. Now we don't need any more rain. Now it's got to be sunny. So it goes away. Everything's working. Things are good. And if not, do more sacrifice. Do your sacrifice until the things change.
Sería la religión maya. Sí, con fuego. Ajá. Haciendo sacrificio con candelas y con incienso, con a veces aguardiente, licor y toda clase, pues se conecta con la tierra. Es como dar un agradecimiento al mundo por las cosas que el mundo nos da. Sí. Tal vez es más de la religión cristiana. Sí, porque desde un inicio en aquel entonces se ha venido a hacer eso. Sí, es más. Sí.
Praying in silence, like Mayas, they don't get that at all. You know, it's like, no, why would you pray in silence? Like, say it. They're having these places where people can go in there and pray. Well, if you go to a place like that and people are praying, and you go to Antigua, Guatemala, which they have another one near the cathedral there, and the people there are basically praying in silence. Unless they come in and they're indigenous, they'll pray out loud. But if you go in Atitlan, the place is just like droning, you know. They're a little bit careful not to sound too shamanic, but everybody comes from a shamanic tradition, so they pray in a shamanic way.
Sí, lo que afecta a esos rituales con los de hoy en tiempo es que la gente a veces ellos usan el licor y no lo usan para un trabajo, sino que usan para un vicio. Todos los días toman y se pierden la mente y ya no piensan de la milpa, de la familia, de los hijos. Por eso se cambió y ahora ya hay iglesias cristianas, ya no lo hacen los rituales, van en la iglesia. Sí, por eso se cambió un poco. Sí. Crucifícame. Crucifícame. Crucifícame.
I had this really tremendous trauma in my life that my father died in an accident. So that was really traumatic, and I never really kind of could get over it. And so then that was the other thing, was the Mayas were in this tremendous trauma, and they could express their grief, like they could just weep, you know. At least I could express my grief amongst the people that understood what the power of grief and the necessity of grief. And then when we don't grieve, yeah, we're in trouble. You know, we just get real twisted. There was something missing in growing up in the world that I grew up in, and that was basically this connection with divinity, with God. I don't like to use the word God, but the divine, that there was this big, big mistake that we had become disconnected. And these people were not disconnected. And it doesn't matter who you are as a Mayan. That's one of these kind of things that they're just kept, whether you're Catholic or you're Pentecostal or you're whatever it is, you're just really connected to this divine side of life. They want to communicate with the ancestors. In order to communicate with the ancestors, then they have to treat the ancestors with quite a lot of dignity and quite a lot of respect, because the ancestors, in fact, are greater than a human being, and they are doing a lot of work for human beings. They created the human beings. So you need the ancestors' help. They need your help. They need to be sustained and fed by you. So what do they love? They're fed by sweet-smelling objects, sweet-smelling natural objects. They love the pine needles. Oh, it smells so nice. The incense smells so nice. The candlelight, oh, it's warm. It's rich, the color is heating, it's hot, it's warm. So you're heating the heart, you're heating the soul of the ancestors, and you're making communication. You're communicating, you're feeding. It's like, come in, come, here's what is yours. Here's your sweet smelling incense. So the divinity takes it in, they smell it in, they bring it in, and so then the divinity comes in. Once the communication is made, then you're going to begin your petition. And the petition usually starts with a thanksgiving. And you're always going to hear Mayan prayer makers, we're going to go in there and we're going to say thank you first. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Maltios, 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 maltios. Yakanan kilal, you've given everything, and we're thankful for everything that you've given us. But you're going to build this fire, you're going to build this little mountain. It's like a pastel, it's like a cake. And once you built that, and then it starts to burn, and all that is released into the sky, yeah? And that's released up into the sky, so the heart of the sky, heart of the earth. Yeah, ukushka, ukushuchulev. Here it is, here's your things. And then they're going to make a petition, they're going to name all the names of the divinities. And this is all part of ancestral Mayan religion, the naming of the names, the making these lists of names in prayers, okay? So you're going to list all the ancestors, you want them all present, and then you begin the petition, and you ask, and you say it once, and then you're going to give some incense, and you're going to say it again 2 times. You're going to give some incense, you're going to give some candles, you're going to give special things every time you ask. At the beginning, you ask pretty nicely, really sweet, really kind, you know. The second time you ask, you're like, you know, so this is serious, you know, we really need these things, you know. But then the third time, when you're really with the mind shame, it's like, okay, you know, like this is it, you know, we're working together, aren't we? Like, I'm your man, you know, I'm your woman, I'm here on the face of the earth. We got to get this done. Like, this is, we need it done. This has to get done. Like, got to get this done. Like, why we're working in a collaborative, cooperative way. That's what human beings want. Boy, this is what we want more than anything else. We want to collaborate with another person. We want to cooperate with another person and to get things done. But what if you were to collaborate and cooperate with divine ancestors? What would that look like? You know, then you're really on this other level where you're really in communication with with divinity, with the divine ancestors. You have this place to go. It's very comforting. It's very empowering to actually make your petitions known and really communicate it. This can't be an abstract thing, you know. For our world, it's very abstract, but not for the Mayas. I mean, it's right here, you know. Mashimon, mom, the ancestor, he brings in all these different aspects from the outside world. He coalesces all this outside power of the patron, of the big guy, the jefe de los jefes, you know, the chief of all chiefs, right? He's the one who's there, he's the big man, and he has a cigar, and he sits on his throne, and he listens to petitions. He's all about power. He's not about survival. He's not about the level of, like, you know, healing my child or surviving because I'm poor and I need some corn. He's not the guy to go ask for corn. He's the guy to ask for, like, I want to be mayor of town, and, like, I want that. Or I want this, I got this enemy, they're total fucking assholes. I want this person dead. You know, like, kill him. He's a killer. When people go to him, they've gone to him because they've kind of run out of other resources. He's very expensive. If you're using the Mashimon, you're going to be in debt to him if he gets his work done. And once you're in debt to him, then you're going to be working for him for the rest of your life. The only kind of parallel that I could say is kind of Faust in this idea of selling your soul to the devil. That's Mashimon. But he gets the things done. He gets miracles done, and he can protect you against really pretty vicious enemies. They've never lived in that world, and so they don't want to live in that world, and they have no desire to live in that world. Their contentment with not living in that world, I think, is kind of almost amazing to us. I stopped doing it because I thought I was always pushing people to develop and change and transform, especially the kids that went to school. But then I thought, no, you don't want to do that, because that's really not part of the culture. So I give the class, and people are kind of looking dumbfounded through it, like, what? You know, like, they have to have a hard time understanding what the conquest was, who, Christopher Columbus, and what, a boat. Like, it's that distant. It's so like, they don't, this stories that we think are so normal in our heads that we think we understand the conquest or whatever. It's like, what? They did what? They're like, yeah, then they took you as slaves. They took us as slaves? You know, yeah, they took you as slaves. They made you work on these farms and the cacao. And from the history, you guys had to pay all this tribute to the Spaniards. You had to pay tribute to Spaniards. Where are the Spaniards? Oh, they were in Antigua. And this whole thing it was got to be really funny, because I can be really funny in front of people. But it was also pathetic, you know, because it was like, I realized that so much of the structure of our telling stories about other people are just this a priori, that we're going to believe that all these things that we know are in fact truth, and we're going to build from that kind of basic understanding of, like, where that truth begins. That they're going to have to find ways to really stand up for themselves against these constant waves of colonization that come one after the other. This denial, that the idea that the colonization is over and that the conquest somehow of Native America is over. It's like, no, it's not. It's on. It's happening all the time.
1, 2, y 3. Adiós, Corona.
Who were the Maya? You know, they didn't exist. We invented them. They're an invention. It's a total formulation of academia. It's a complete creation for academic needs and museum needs to categorize things. Why would we even call Indians Indians? Because they thought it was India. And that's a basic kind of thing that everybody knows, but it doesn't really, people don't take it in. It's like, well, that's a major mistake at the very beginning, and that just flows through all of our interpretation. Just calling people Indians, it's off. So, not that you can do much about it, because then, well, how do we call these people? Well, Native Americans, but we can't use America, because America's an invention. It's like, well, I don't know, you know, like, find the words, and that's what we're going through. We're looking for new words right now, big time. Mayas never called themselves Mayas. We're in these independent groups of people. They were even antagonistic to one another in many ways. And so that's what you have here. You know, people call themselves, I'm from Chacaya, I'm Chacayenses, I'm from Mutatlan. They see themselves from the level of village, you know, and then at village, when you go to the village, you realize, oh, well, this person doesn't see themselves from the village. They see themselves from the aldea of Trijomil. So identity gets smaller and smaller in cultures such as this.
My name is Estela. I am 16. I'm from Guatemala. I live in Trimasana with my family. En mi futuro veo que seré una gran auditora. Compraré o haré una casa. Compraré mis cosas como terreno. Eso es lo que pienso en mi futuro. Yo quiero quedarme aquí en Guatemala para ser feliz con mi familia. Quiero viajar, conocer el mundo, conocer más países, cómo están conformados, qué cultura tiene cada país. Me gustaría conocer.
The threat of the Mayan culture in the future is how will they integrate their past into the future? The Mayas will have to stand up for themselves and say, we will not going to allow you to use, to take our culture, transform it so that it's used as a marketing strategy in order to turn us into better consumers of products that maybe we don't want. This is already happening in a big way. The Mayas are drinking, you know, way too much sugar. They're eating too much oil, just like in all Native America. The obesity is really shocking in the last 30 years in the Native American cultures. And this is all targeted by big companies.
Lo importante es salir siempre adelante, luchar por nuestra cultura como guatemaltecos que somos. Recordaríamos siempre a nuestros ancestros, nuestros abuelos, nuestros antepasados para nuestra cultura maya.
We have to understand people in the context that they understood themselves. And that's what's new. How do people understand themselves to themselves instead of how do we understand them according to our categories? I think that's seen its day. That has to go. You know, we have to start to understand people within the context of how they actually see themselves, and particularly through their language. It's time that we get away from constantly like making really bad translations of their ancient text, and then from those bad translations making even worse interpretations of them. And it's just like a slippery slope to like misunderstanding other human beings.